Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grub here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program this morning, covering natural health. And natural health is our topic for this morning, our focus for this morning. And our topic for this morning is contracting dangerous diseases from eating meat. Contracting dangerous diseases from eating meat is our focus for this morning as we do our natural health program, looking at some of the current events. So this morning here, four articles. Two will introduce the topic. Two will introduce the morning, or to start the morning, I should say, and then the other two will be the focus of our discussion for this morning. So again, we're doing four articles here, and I'm going to share some information here that is important for you to understand the correlation or the connection between meat eating and diseases, dangerous diseases. We're going to be focused on MRSA, but most actually that this includes cancers and various different diseases. And also what we'll be doing here is just taking a look at even how it affects our aging and other process. So again, welcome to our live talk program, and we'll begin this morning talk with a short prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, we thank thee again for your love and the blessings and the information that you continue to give us and reveal to us that we might live, dear Lord, and not die. May you bless us as we look at these things together this morning. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So our morning here start with two articles. I'm just going to give you two quick articles just to give you some updates of what's going on in the news right now when it comes on to health, and then after that I'll pivot to our main focus this morning, which is the disease, the connection of the disease in animals when it comes on to MRSA. And firstly here I start out by this little piece here from NBC News written by Maggie Fox, and it's entitled "The Whole World is Getting Fatter." So the whole world is getting fatter, and this is something that you probably can testify by just observing life and observing what's going on, that the whole world is getting fatter. And as this kind of development continues, then you're seeing basically you're seeing it with your own eyes, and so you can testify with your own eyes as to what's going on. Now here it says nearly a third of the world's population is overweight or obese now, and it's getting worse, researchers reported Monday. The number of obese people has doubled since 1980 in 73 countries. The global team of researchers wrote in the New England Journal of Medicine. 12% of adults and 5% of children are classified as obese, meaning their body mass index, a measure of the height to weight, is significantly above the healthy level. In 2005, a total of 107 million children and 600,000 million adults were obese. The team of the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation and the University of Washington, who led the study team, said in a statement, "It's killing them." In 2015, high BMI contributed to 4 million deaths, which represented 7% of the deaths from any cause, the team wrote in their report. So again, there's a little pause here. That's a very significant number when you have that much people are dying from this type of just being overweight or obese. This is a massive cause here and massive number. So it's always best to try to keep a lean body as possible. People who shrug off weight gain do so at their own risk. Risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and other life-threatening conditions, stated the director, Dr. Christopher Murray. Those have serious New Year's resolution to lose weight should become year-round commitment to lose weight and prevent future weight gain. The U.S. is at the head of the pack with more than two-thirds of Americans overweight or obese. Having too much body fat raises the risk of heart disease, many types of cancers, diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer's disease, and a range of other conditions. It makes people more likely to get seriously ill or die from influenza and other infectious infectious disease also. And that is significant to note here, because what you're dealing with here is, as is stated here, if you're having too much weight on, you're increase the risk of not just the regular cardiovascular cancer, diabetes, but also you increase the risk of having other infections and influenza. So a person could die of influenza, and it's simply a matter of that their body is so riddled or weakened that it's easy for the disease to take hold of them and kill them. So that's important. So even though they say 7%, 70%, 7% is a big number still, but the number could be much bigger because, again, the whole body is weakened. So the person died of cancer, but part of the problem is not just the cancer. So hopefully that kind of makes sense there. Egypt has the most obese adults in 2015, with 35% of all adults reaching a BMI of 30 or greater. 22 to 25 is considered healthy. So the most obese people are in Egypt. Fascinating. And nearly 13% of kids are obese in the US, the highest percentage in the world. The thinnest country, just 1.6% of adults in Vietnam are obese, and 1.2% of children are obese in Bangladesh. The survey found. So those two countries normally kind of live up to sometimes what you see when you watch videos of those countries, where the people look a little bit thinner. In general, when you're going on the street or you see a video just going through the streets, you look and you say, wow, they look so thin. From 1990 through 2015, there was a relative increase of 28.3% in the global rate of death related to BMI, the researchers wrote. Nearly 70% of the deaths that were related to high BMI were due to cardiovascular disease, and more than 60% of the deaths occurred among obese people. Evidence is building that it's food, not lack of exercise, that is more to blame for the expanding waistline. Changes in food environment and food systems are probably major drivers, research team wrote. Increased availability, accessibility, and affordability of energy-dense food, along with intense marketing of such foods, could explain excess energy intake and weight gain among different population, he added. Cars, roads, public transportation, and other factors have been around too long to take the blame for the changes in the obesity rates, researchers said. It's not clear what can be done. Countries have tried many different approaches with little effect so far, Murray team says. Among such interventions are restricting the advertisement of unhealthy food to children, improving schools' meal, using taxation to reduce consumption of unhealthy foods, and providing substitutes to increase intake of healthy foods, using supply chain incentive to increase the production of healthy foods, they wrote. So those are some suggestions that can be done. So this is why you're here, for me to encourage you that it's best to deal with the main factor that they said here. The main factor that is affecting this is the increased intake of high density, caloric foods that have high amount of energy in them. And the more you eat this type of food, the more you're going to pack on weight. And they had noted that it's problematic when it comes on to the amount of, the amount of, exercise one do, because you could do all the exercise, but there's a certain amount of calories per day that you cannot exercise off. And it doesn't matter how you slice it. If your body's burning, say, 2,000 calories a day, let's go with that number, and you're exercising, and you put it on an exercise program that will give you an extra, say, 200 calories burnt in your exercise program. So now you're burning 2,200. But you're eating about 3,000 calories per day. Whether you eat that in 1 meal, 2 meals, or 3 meals, or even 4 meals, you're still going to have a problem because you're doing an extra 800 per day. So that extra 800 calories gotta go somewhere, and where it's gonna go in stored energy. So there's just a point where no matter what one say about exercise, it is always good to keep your body, your muscles toned and worked, but you still have to consider the fact that no matter how much exercise you do and no matter what you do, you still have to consider how much calories you're taking in and how much, certain types of food, what's the makeup on the plate. If the plate is made up with food that is dense in calorie, then you're going to find, when I'm talking about that is fat, carb, protein, if you're going to find that you're going to have your meal is just too much fat and primarily carbs and protein, and there's not enough vegetables or there's not enough fruit in your diet, no matter how much you exercise, you're going to run into a problem because you're just going to be up against the numbers. And as you know, the numbers never lie. So if your numbers are coming out stating that you're partaking of, too much calories, and you're only, you're only burning so much. And this is even more important for people with slow metabolic rate, because if your metabolic rate is real slow, you're going to have a bigger problem. So important to keep that in mind, that you adjust the amount of calories you're eating. And primarily by how you do this, I think, is just by dealing with more fruits and vegetables, since they're lower in calories and high in nutrients, and you get yourself filled, but you're not putting on that so much calories in your stomach. And then you don't have to worry about the level of how much burning you have to do and so forth. So that's it. We'll move on to the next article here. I want to share this article now. The next article, second article here, which I'm going to switch it for you in your mind before I come back to food again. The FDA asks drug companies to pull its opioid Opana because of abuse. This is by Maggie Fox over there at NBC News. For the first time ever, the Food and Drug Administration told a drug company to pull a painkiller off the market because it has such a high potential for abuse. The Federal Drug Administration, the FDA, said Thursday that Opana ER, an extended release form of opiate drug, oxymorphone, made by the drug company Endo, was being crushed up and injected by people seeking to abuse it. Today, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration requested that Endo Pharmaceuticals remove its opioid pain medication formulated Opana ER or oxymorphone hydrochloride from the market, the FDA said in a statement. After careful consideration, the agency is seeking removal based on its concerns that the benefits of the drug may no longer outweigh its risk. This is the first time the agency has taken steps to remove a currently marketed opioid pain medication from sales due to public health consequences of abuse. The company is pushing back, saying the drug is safe and effective. It's not a gentle request. The FDA say if Endo doesn't voluntarily pull the drug from the market, it will withdraw approval. Endo is reviewing the request and is evaluating the full range of potential options as we determine the appropriate path forward, Endo said in a statement. Despite the FDA's request of withdraw Opana ER from the market, this request does not indicate uncertainty with the product's safety or efficacy, which take as prescribed. Morning. Opana is one of the many opioids being abused in the opioid epidemic that is sweeping the United States. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention said opioid overdose have hit record highs, killing more than 40,000 people in 2015, more than 32,000 who died in road accidents. So let's pause here. So just in case you haven't been following this in the news, and you probably been seeing this going on. Before I get to, again, remember my main topic for this morning here is dealing with disease and animals. But before I get here, just if you've been back to this article here, which was one of my introductory article, if you've been following the news lately and you've been seeing the issue with the drug epidemic, you would notice here with the drug epidemic that's been going on that there is a correlation, which the article would say in a little bit, between those who partake of the drugs legally. So they started out with doctors, and then they went on to heroin, street drugs, and various forms. Now, this is the first time, as the article said, that the FDA is pulling a drug that is currently in use and is currently being promoted from the market, or requesting the manufacturer to pull the drugs. And this is telling you how serious this drug epidemic is, because of the amount of deaths that are happening from it, and that most of the deaths are from people who started legally. And as you can see here from the article, this is something that has never been done before. So this is fascinating to tell you that the drug epidemic has made people, even at the FDA level, who sometimes are too free to give out, to approve drugs that are dangerous, that they have to really rethink about this, because the negative far outweighs the positive, according to them. So we keep reading here. We're facing an opioid epidemic, a public health crisis, and we must take all necessary steps to reduce the scope of opioid misuse and abuse. The FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb said in a statement. Endo was which sold $158 million worth of the Opana ER in 2015, have reformulated the pills in 2012 and sought to get them labeled as abuse deterrent. The FDA said that the reformulation made things worse. The FDA's decision is based on reviews of all available post-marketing data, which demonstrate a significant shift in the route of abuse of Opana ER from nasal to injection following the product's reformulation. It said injection abuse of reformulated Opana ER has been associated with serious outbreak of HIV and hepatitis C. It added, both viruses spread when people share needles. Cities and states have started suing makers of opiate drugs, saying that they have pushed their drugs on doctors and patients alike, helping drive addiction. Studies show many, if not most, addicts started out using prescription opiate to treat legitimate pain. 4 out of 5 individuals now suffering from heroin or fentanyl addictions started down this road by using prescription opiate, Hawaii Attorney General Mike DeWint told a hearing in the Congress on the opiate epidemic Thursday. Endo is one of 5 companies being sued by Ohio, the second state to sue a company after Mississippi, Everett, Washington, and Purdue sued Purdue Pharma, the maker of opioid OxyContin. The abuse and the manipulation of the reformulated Opana ER by injection has resulted in serious disease outbreak. The FDA stated, when we determined that the product has had dangerous and unintended consequences, we made a decision to request its withdrawal from the market. This action will protect the public from further potential for misuse and abuse of the product. And that's the end of the statement from the FDA there. So the FDA is doing something that is fresh, new, which it's requesting a drug that is currently being promoted in circulation to be withdrawn from the market, similar to how you would withdraw food if it's tainted and is killing too many people, which is reasonable. And as they push this type of drugs, and as this drugs being promoted by companies like Endo, you find that again there's a correlation, because the person starts off with pain, then they go from pain to pain management, and then they become hooked, because drugs have to be used repetitively before the brain develop a dependency upon it. to make the body feels good. And as they do this now, you have a product that, if you think about it, it's a product that the person is going to buy not because they enjoy it, but because they're addicted to it. This is different from selling, say, water. You know, you need water, but you're not stuck to one manufacturer because you have a specific type of water. It's just a taste. It's a need, not so much a drive based upon addiction. So here you have a product being sold by pharmaceutical companies that, in essence, after the person have used it repetitively for a certain period of time, they're going to now become dependent upon it. So you have a guaranteed stream of income. But the problem is, there's a point where the doctors realize that they have an addiction on their hands. They cut the person loose. As the person is cut loose, the person now turns to street drugs. And the street drugs, like your heroin, your fentanyl, and so forth, just create havoc and destruction. And this is the type of thing that's going on. So anyhow, so you see this type of stuff happening. And as I said, this is a new step in a different direction that we're seeing here for the FDA to pull a drug that is in current circulation. Basically, primarily what we're talking about here is pull other drugs, but I'm talking about here opiates. So we move on now to the main focus that I want to talk about with you here this morning, which is contracting dangerous diseases by eating meat. Now, here's another example of this reality, which is basically this idea here of contracting diseases by eating meat. And you see here, this is another example that I'm going to put here. And this is written by Marion McKenna. All right, so Marion McKenna here at Mother Jones reported on this outbreak that is going on in Denmark and I think Netherlands. And it's entitled, "We Have No Way of Knowing If This Scary Superbug Has Already Hit the United States." So this is the topic about this superbug here, this MRSA, that is there in Europe. A recent study from Denmark shows that a strain of drug-resistant staph carried by pigs is causing severe illnesses in people who have no contact with pigs or farms. So again, this is significant because people, normally you would say, and they've done studies where you go on chicken farms or hog farms and you test individuals. They'll do a swab of their nose, their nostrils, or they do some skin test or something. And as they do the skin test, they'll find that they'll have the staph infection in their nostrils. Okay, so that's something that was already known and established. But this idea here of people who have never come in contact with pigs, whether it be on a farm or in a pet situation where they have a pet pig, are contracting this type of disease. Continue reading here. The infections have occurred even though Denmark has some of the most stringent control on antibiotic use. And the study's authors say the United States may be risking similar undiagnosed infections. The study by American and Danish researchers published May 30 in the Journal of Clinical Infectious Diseases analyzed records of antibiotic-resistant infections routinely collected by the Danish National Health System. It finds that between 2010 and 2015, a strain of staph known as livestock-associated MRSA caused an increased amount of bloodstream infections, rising in 2014 to 16% of all bloodstream infections caused by resistant staph. That is a noticeable amount because livestock MRSA, which has the technical strain designation of CC398. Now remember that sequence, because the next article I'm going to share, that's going to come up again, but in a different strain. I think it's going to be CT or not CC, but the 398. Keep that in mind. And it's often just called pig MRSA. So that's the name of it. It's just simply called pig MRSA or pig multi-drug resistant staph infection. Was only identified in Denmark in 2004. That was the same year that the pig strain was identified for the first time very first time in hog farmers in the Netherlands. Previously, drug-resistant staph have been considered only a human problem, spilling out from hospitals into school and sport teams. Subsequently, the new strain was traced to pigs that had received routine antibiotic in large-scale confined farming. It spread across Europe and was found in Canada and the United States. The second article I'm going to show you here will show that it's been in the United States for quite a few years now. Lance B. Price, PhD, the founding director of the Antibiotic Resistant Action Center at the George Washington University and one of the study's senior authors, said that in the years since it was first identified, livestock associated staph has acquired a reputation as a benign bug that causes only mild infections. The analysis of the Danish cases, which presented one of the most complete data set anywhere on antibiotic resistant infections, showed that not to be the true, he said, or to not found that it's not true. So basically saying here, they thought it was just something that will cause just a mild infection. But the reality is not causing a mild infection. The sad reality is that it's causing major infections, 16% of all blood staph infection. We knew that livestock-associated MRSA could cause MRSA causes some bloodstream infection, but once we looked at the number, we realized that Denmark had an explosion. Even though they have many fewer MRSA cases than the United States, there has been a real increase over time in how many of them were caused by the pig-related strain, he said. The data also showed that livestock strains were moving through the country because 59% of the bloodstream infection occurred in people who had no contact with livestock, zero contact with livestock. That's worrisome, Price said, because people who work with livestock tend to be young and healthy, whereas the wider population is more likely to contain people whose immune systems have been undermined by age and disease. It's possible, he said, that the pig strain of the MRSA doesn't deserve its reputation as a mild bug, but earn it only because it first causes infection in people who are sturdy enough to fight off its worst effects. One of the mysteries of the study is why the Danish infection, plus a wider outbreak of skin infection also causes by this pig strain, exists at all. It's generally accepted that antibiotic use drives the emergence of antibiotic resistance. The more the drug is prescribed, the more bacteria are pushed to adapt and defend themselves. Yet Denmark strictly limits antibiotic use in agriculture and in medicine. By contrast, when the very first cases of pig MRSA were found in Netherlands, that country had one of Europe's lowest rates of antibiotic use in medicine, but one of the highest rates in farming. So they had one of the highest rates in farming. And I notice again here, one of the worst animals that one could eat, and one of the animals that the Bible forbids more than anything else to not eat was pigs. And this is where you're getting all this swine flu and all these different diseases. So that's a very important thing to note. We continue reading here. It's also not known how the strain entered Denmark. It is possible that it could have arrived via pig trade across borders, or with a person who carried the pig strain unknowingly, or possibly both. Scov says the strain may have been introduced to Danish agriculture multiple times. What has kept it from taking over is that livestock MRSA appears to be less transmissible between humans than other forms of MRSA. But the worry from day one, he said, is that this could evolve from being a less transmissible to more so, which will happen if you've been following what's going on with drug resistance. Because you're reading here, it said research team able to trace the disease moving between pigs and people because Denmark conduct comprehensive surveillance of human infections and animal strains. That isn't true in the United States, where there is very little surveillance of drug resistance in livestock, and scientists trying to trace MRSA movement have had trouble persuading livestock producers to cooperate. So I just want to make a little note there that I believe these diseases are worse in America. That's my belief because of what I've been looking at over the years. And if you note this idea and keep it in mind that the tracing of these MRSA back to livestock when it outbreaks in human beings is not done properly or much in the United States. So sometimes you see people sick or dying. You always meet people there always so sick. And some doctors don't know exactly what's going on. Or they come down with a MRSA, but they're not trying to test to see where this MRSA come from. They say, oh, they picked up in the hospital or something. But where it come from? I'm one that believe, as you know here, that you eat your disease. And since, more and more pork is such a big part of the food chain and other type of animals, then when you simply have it where people are eating this stuff, they're not getting it because they go on farms. A lot of people never even, they don't go on farms. They don't go near pigs and stuff like that. So this is significant. And I just wanted to note that they're not tracing back the sources of these MRSA. They say, oh, the person catch the MRSA, but where did it originate from? And if you remember a few years back when there was a swine flu outbreak, that the farmers did not want it called swine flu, but they wanted to call it by its generic name, like its scientific name, because it was tainting and making the swine industry or the pork industry look bad. But it's important to know what was the source of the animal. And that is true also, as you said there, for bird flu. If you have a source and well, that's the source of it. So if I stop eating that thing, I'll avoid the disease. We wrap up this article here before I go to my last article, and I'm going to share some Bible passages with you. We don't have the system the Danes have to assess MRSA in people. We don't even track staff, Price says. Yet, judging by the Danish results, Americans are vulnerable. Rural American communities are full of the same sort of older people suffering from chronic illnesses who were more likely to have pig MRSA infections in Denmark. We have this stuff in animals. We have people interacting with animals. We have people with compromised immune system living close to them, Price said. But we don't do the surveillance that would allow us to determine how often these bugs are making the jump to people. And that is too bad. So this is the problem here. If you say to a person that says, look, the meat you're eating is disease and you're getting the disease, they'll look at you as this is something strange. But the problem is, from a scientific and testing point of view, America does not trace back where you catch this disease, how you're picking it up. They're just reporting on the amount of staph infection that's happening in America and the amount of people dying from it, which is risen over the years to major proportions. So if you're not tracing it, you're just basically saying, hey, it's happening, but where's it coming from? What's the source of it? You're simply trying to protect an industry. And as you protect the industry, allow the people to die for the sake of profit. So it's important to consider this when you consider what is that you're eating, because people believe, well, I'm just eating a meal. No, it's not a meal. It is stated by the FDA and by the chicken industry or poultry industry that 25% of all of the chickens that you will buy, 25% of them has salmonella on it. 25%. So it doesn't matter. If you go in the store, you pick up a chicken, you have a 1 in 4% chance that chicken is tainted with salmonella. You're gonna bring it home, cook it, and hopefully you kill enough of it and you eat it. You don't get sick. How do you think about people always coming down with stomach infections? And they don't know why. And it's simply because you have a 1 in 4 chance. And this is not some number that is just grabbed out of the air. This is their numbers. This is what they're saying, that when they, no matter what they do with the chicken, these are the results. But if you not state this, you protect the industry and you do good. Now, last article here that is connected with the same thing. Now, remember I said that the gentleman said here, which is the main author of the research, Dr. Price, said that, and I read again, it says, we have this stuff in animals, we have people interacting with animals, and we have people with compromised immune system living close to them. So it's here in America, but unlike in the Netherlands and places like that, in America they don't test and see where it's coming from. So here's just a little proof here from the same author, 2009. This is an article going back now, stating that the type of infection, staph infection, is in America, and it's something that's proven, right? So it's entitled, and this is from Scientific America, and it's a new strain of drug-resistant staph infection found in U.S. pigs. A strain of drug-resistant staph infection is identified in pigs in the Netherlands 5 years ago, which account for nearly 1/3 of all staph infections in humans there, has been found in the U.S. for the first time, according to a new study. This is, again, it was found in 2009, so I'm just telling you that it's been found but not been traced back to the people and the animals back and forth. 70% of 209 pigs and 9 of 14 workers on 7 linked farms in Iowa and Illinois were found to be carrying the ST398 strain of methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus, right? This is a drug-resistant staph. Now notice here, 70% of the pigs, 70% of the pigs, right, even gummy bear, 70% of the pigs, which, as you know, one of the Periscope person here says, it's in even in gummy bears. So 70% of the pigs have this staph infection, and workers working with the pigs, out of 14 workers, 50%, 7 of them had the infection. Notice here the one that we're currently talking about, which is the CC398, is found in Denmark. In America, 70% of all the pigs have the ST398. And that's what's going on. The study marks the first time researchers have tested the strain in the US. So there's no way yet to tell when and how it arrived and how widespread it may be, says Tara Smith, an assistant professor of epidemiology at the University of Iowa in Iowa City and lead author of the study, published on the Public Library of Science Journal, which, if you're looking up, is PLOS 1. The infection could be due to movement of animals from farm to farm, or it could be due to novel acquisition of resistance on this farm. She says, it's in such a small sample that we don't know whether it is larger, it has a larger or significance or not. The IR group undertook the study on 2 sets of farms called the production pyramid, which daily surveillance for an unrelated disease. Animals and humans on the second set of farms, also in Iowa, harbored no MRSA. U.S. researchers have been on a lookout for ST398 in the U.S. since it was identified in 2007 in pigs and farm workers in Ontario. The new strain was first found in 2004 in a baby about to undergo heart surgery in the Netherlands, which is nearly MRSA-free because of national mandate infection control in its hospital. It was traced to the pig on her parents' farm. The strain has spread so rapidly since then that it now accounts for 30% of staph isolates now sent to the Netherlands National Laboratory, compared to 1% in 2000. So I just want to point this out to you here. Notice there's a increase. It's getting worse. So it's that bad now that they have to be reporting that this is a problem. So remember, in one form, 70% of the pigs in one form had it, in another form, none. And this is going by 2009. So this is years later, where in Netherlands it has risen in a significant way. So we can guarantee if they would do the testing similar to the rise of staph infection in the United States, they would be able to show that these pigs have really, the disease have really increased amongst pigs. So the risk of acquiring the ST398 is highest among pig farmers, say Jan Kluckman, a professor of microbiology and infection control in University of Amsterdam, who found that 32% of patients in one hospitals in a pig farming community were exposed to livestock that carried the bug. People who live some distance from the farm, he says, have a much lower rate of carrying the bacterium. If it turns out to be the cause disease in human in the US, the ST398 could further complicate the general struggle against MRSA, which is already being fought in two fronts against a hospital-acquired strain that began attacking US patients in the late 1960s and the community strain. So you have a strain of the MRSA in the community, a strain of the MRSA in the hospital, and the problem now when you have a strain now that will be now in the farming community, and then you have a problem. That began sickening people, healthy people who have not been hospitalized in the 1990s. The staph strain are related but have different genetic profile and different resistant pattern. The hospital strain contaminates wounds and causes an overwhelming bacterial infection, whereas the community strain causes a range of symptoms from mild infection to rapid fatal pneumonia. Both can be deadly. In 2007, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, estimated that 94,000 Americans contracted invasive infections and 18,650 of them died. 85% of the deaths, it said, were caused by healthcare strain. Now remember, this article is from 2009. The numbers now is way higher. And again, this is hospitals primarily, community, and then now we have on the pig farms. It is not clear whether ST398 have the potential of spreading fast and causing symptoms in the U.S., but researchers say it arrival raises important questions about broad antibiotic use in animals. The Midwestern pig strain is resistant to tetracycline, a common veterinary drug, but U.S. human strains are not. There also a question of whether the bacterium poses a risk to the food supply. Dutch researchers are about to publish evidence that the ST398 is in 12% of retail pigs and other meat samples. The MRSA experts say the biggest concern is the unpredictability created by the addition of novel strains to the rapid evolving U.S. epidemic. Strains change. They pick up new virulence, new resistant factors, says Andreas Voss, a professor of the clinical microbiology and infection control at the University in Netherlands, who uncovered that country's first case in 2004. I believe it is potential bombshell that is there. So you believe there's a bombshell that will go off. Now remember, 2009, now they're saying that one of the highest infectious rate in the Netherlands is coming from this pig MRSA. And this pig MRSA is in the United States, but there's more people, as you know, that are dying from MRSA in the United States, and it has become one of the leading cause of deaths. But yet, there is no tracing back the MRSA to what's the source. I believe the source is going to come back to some of the main things that the Bible covers: the animals that we eat and the way we keep the condition of our surroundings. In the idea of cleanliness, think about it. The places that normally you pick up MRSA are in like gyms, hospitals, any places that normally have an unclean condition. It's normally where you pick up MRSA. And so, if you think about it, the filthy conditions normally precipitate or push on the disease because the bacteria grow in filthy conditions. So normally, again, at the hospitals basically is the incubation for those things. If the hospitals are not properly clean, kept very clean, it will start growing. It'll grow in the air duct system. That's what happened in one of the hospitals, the VA hospital in DC. It'll grow in things, various different places. Same thing when it comes on to how many young people have died because they pick it up in gyms. Again, you have a filthy place where very filthy condition. A lot of young men, if it's not clean, sterilized from basically from wall to floor, then you have bacteria growing, and you could simply just touch a surface, sit on somewhere, and then you pick up this disease. Another outbreak is happening right now, as you know, with MRSA, is in the gay community in Los Angeles, San Francisco area, and also in like places like Greenwich Village, New York. Again, why? Because many of those men are picking up disease in their groin area because you can't mix feces and stuff. You will create unsanitary conditions. And so this is part of the problem that's going on where you look at some of the main principles in the Bible. It always go back to clean. God is a God of cleanliness. The statement that people say about God, although the statement is not found in the Bible, cleanliness is next to godliness. God always want to clean. God want you to clean your hands, clean your heart, clean your mind, clean your surrounding. And we always start with cleanliness. So any activity that leads to uncleanness will create a kind of disease condition. And if you notice recently, that there's been a lot of problems even with the antibiotic soaps, because they're saying there's never been any proof that the antibiotic soaps really work. There's never been a proof, and the FDA is asking the antibiotic soap makers to bring the proof, because there's no proof that it's better to stay away from diseases by using antibiotic soap. Number one, you create some problems because remember, we have natural bacteria on our skin. If those bacteria are damaged, it will cause skin infections. They've been looking at research now showing that any type of bacteria on your skin that get damaged, it will open your skin up to various different diseases like psoriasis and eczema and stuff like that, because the bacteria help protect your skin. Also, you find that if you're in a hospital system and say your hand touches, say, feces, you need soap and water to get the thing off your skin. All the antibiotic is doing is trying to kill the bacteria within the matter that you just touch. How does that fix the problem of removing the feces off your hand? It doesn't. And so you have a nurse going to a place, the person's having diarrhea, and probably in that diarrhea some dangerous diseases. If she touched that area, and unbeknownst to her, she touched an area that, say, the thing had spilled somewhere, how is antibacterial soap is gonna help? Because it's just saying you have the filth still in your hand, but you're trying to kill the bacteria. If the bacteria are resistant now to the antibiotic that's used, which is really where this has become nonsensical, because if you can't kill the bacteria with the antibiotic, even the antibiotic in the soap, we don't know how concentrated it is. How is it going to sterilize the person's hand? The only way or the only safe thing for the person to do is literally to go get some soap their hand up, get some water, make sure soap again up, and wash, and then dry, and remove the disease matter, the disease carrying, matter off the hand. And when they do that, then there's more safety there. Then if they want to apply some alcohol or something, alcoholic solution to sterilize a little bit more, sure, but you can't do it. So cleanliness always, again, is one of the first things that I would say here this morning when it comes on to it. But so is it with cleanliness. It's also cleanliness in the diet, because if you look at the laws that the Lord gave us laws in the Bible where He has clean and unclean foods. The clean foods would represent foods that, though they might convey diseases, they have a lower risk, but they still have a risk, as we have seen over the years. But the foods that have the highest risk are the foods that are scavenger-based foods. So you look in the Bible, you look in Leviticus, you'll see very quickly that if you really think about the foods that the Lord is saying not to eat, are the filthy foods, the foods that are filter cleaners. So your clam and your mussels, they're great to clean the water by filtering through the water and pulling out all the disease out of the dirt and stuff out of the water. Then you have your foods that are bottom feeders, your catfish and and your various different fishes that feeds on the bottom, lobsters and so forth. They clean up the dead decay matter. They're like the sea pallbearers and funeral people. Then you have on the land now, you have the animals that are again are they will eat primarily dead and decay matter. Your pig, your crows, your buzzards, your various different things that eat carrions and stuff like that. You avoid eating these things and you find that the possibility of contracting disease go way down, even though we know in time now that disease in animals have risen. So just see if I can share a few texts here this morning with you. Romans chapter 8 verse 28. Romans chapter 8 verse 28 says, "For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now." So the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. What we know is that the Bible teaches us the opposite of evolution. The Bible teaches that we started in creation, man was made in the image of God, man was made perfect, and man, Genesis chapter 1 verse 29, had a plant-based diet, the best diet for man. Men became degenerate and sinful, and men started to eat an animal-based diet, and as the Bible shows, their age reduced and also their energy reduced and disease increased. If you read the Old Testament, you find the Bible authors hardly talk about disease. By the time we come to the time of Christ, we start seeing a lot of what we call neurological disease, blindness, paralytic, the disease that are more neurological based. Now, in our time period, what we're dealing with is all that plus lifestyle disease based upon our diet. The meat has worked its wonders and its destructive effects upon the human body. So, when the Bible here now, Romans 8 verse 22, Paul here writing, Paul says, the whole creation groaned. You could see the effect of rebellion on human beings at Romans 8:28. At the time 2,000 years ago. Now we're living in a time period where things have changed drastically because of modern ability to refrigerate foods. We're able to eat a diet that you can have 3 meals a day with meat. And so the diet has gone from just eating meat when we can to now you can eat meat, and you could actually eat meat straight. And don't even bother yourself with fruits and vegetables. And I've known people live like that. Some processed carbs and so forth. So the diet has become filthier and more killing based. We have to kill something to eat. And it's moved from what God originally intended, which was a plant-based diet, Genesis 1:29. And so we can look at the animals and we can say animals look like they're sick. In Genesis 1 verse 29, God says, Genesis 1 verse 29 says, and God says, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed. So every herb that bears seed. So amaranth is a herb bearing seed, and which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat. So every fruit, every plant that bears seed, that's food. The seed is the food, or the thing that has the seed. So an apple has a seed. A flax bear seeds. So our diets was fruits, not seeds, legumes. Anything that bears, because remember in the Garden of Eden and before sin, nothing would die. So you don't have to kill to live. Today we have to kill to live. Even if we're in a plant-based diet, there's time where we get so sick that we have to eat the roots of a plant, like a golden seal root. So the plant is sacrificed for our lives because disease caused for death. Sad to say. So when you look at it, every seed bearing, anything that bears seed, so flaxseed, if you think about flaxseed is a good substitute for omega, that fishy thing that we need, tasting thing, or the nutrients other than seaweed. So if you think about it, same thing with peppers. Peppers would have seeds. Same thing with avocado. Avocado would have seeds. Our diet, yes, our diet is made with. That was the original diet. That was the best diet, but because of the rebellion, we decided to choose let's kill things and eat it. So God says, well, if you're gonna do this, because that's what the Bible clearly teaches, this is the best way to do it, clean and unclean. And we notice if you want to live healthier, you go to a clean animals diet. If you want to be really healthy, you go to a plant-based diet. That's very simple and straightforward. After sin, Genesis 3:17, for the sake of time, I won't read this. 3:17 states simply that God had to give us herbs because herbs has healing, and we receive the healing from any from the herbs also because of the sickness of our disease. I close out by reading this passage of scripture, which is found in Hosea chapter 4, verse 1 through 3. Hosea chapter 4, verse 1 through 3 says, "Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel. For the Lord had a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out, and blood toucheth blood. Therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that dwelleth therein shall languish, with the beasts of the field, and with the fowls of the heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away." So if you look at this text here talking about as we wrap up in the course of history, and we're there. And if you look at what's going on now, you'll see there's just times when you just see death, just fish just washing up, whales washing up on the sea. You see big schools of fish just washing up on the sea. And that's a sign of the end times, because there is nothing recorded in, recorded history, even the last 200 years, where we've been having this massive fish die-offs, animals die off. You've seen areas where there's no explanation. The scientists go there and try to figure out why all these, say, deers just by the hundreds just drop on the field dead. Birds just by the thousands dropping out of the air dead. And again, when we look at this, it correlates to Hosea chapter 4, verse 3. Therefore, the land shall mourn. We can say the land is mourning. There's a constant fight back and forth, even around the world, about global warming. And basically, whatever you want to call it or what's going on, you can see that the earth is polluted. Man has destroyed the earth. And everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish. The word languish here, as you know, we're very familiar with this idea here, is that languish means to have a long suffering until you die. You have a sickness that goes on and on. Think about the type of disease that we're facing as human beings. We're facing a lot of what you call immune diseases. We're facing disease where people smoke and have emphysema, and they suffer for 10, 20 years. We have diseases where people have Crohn's disease, irritable bowel disease, diseases where the whole digestive tract is basically being destroyed. And it's just people are just suffering long term. But the animals also, you look at the animals, this is why the FDA banned haven't allowed farming of deers, because deers are filled with mad deer disease. You eat the deer, you get sick. So the people are languishing. And when I say language again, long-term sicknesses where people just suffer and suffer. As a matter of fact, they've shown that a lot of the drug being used for pain is because people started out with disease where they're degenerating, literally rotting while alive. Young people too. But also the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken. So we're living in this time period where we see massive die-off of fishes, of animals, of birds. And as we see this, the languishing, the long-term suffering that is going on in the animal kingdom, tell you that if you want to be healthy, the best thing you can do is go to the best diet, is to remove from your diet a diet that is primarily animal-based and go to a plant-based diet where you're not exposed to all the cancers and the tumors and all the leukemia that the kids are dying from, that is normally associated with chicken eating, all this MRSA from the pig, all these various different diseases that the animals themselves are dying, all this cancer that these fishes have, and the mercury poisoning. and you go to a diet that is very plant-based, very natural, and you find that your health was sore, you will feel better, and you will be able to prove what the Bible said, that the best diet for man was a diet that was originally given to man. Let us close with a prayer. Thank you, Lord, again for your love and your blessing towards us, and pray that you may be with us and give us the mind to basically choose the best things that we can do for ourselves, the best diet that we'll be able to avoid all these diseases and live healthy, happy lives. Bless us as we go through the rest of this day. And thank you for everyone that was here this morning. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you tomorrow morning, where we shall talk about current events, where we talk about some of the current happenings that's going on in the world. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.